What if I told you that surviving the next big crisis doesn't require a secret bunker or some overpriced $10,000 survival kit? The truth is, far more shocking. The real lifesavers are sitting right under your nose, in a $5 box at your local flea market. Most people walk right past them without even realizing they're looking at tools that could one day mean the difference between comfort and chaos. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been digging through flea markets across the US and Canada, searching through piles of forgotten junk that sellers practically give away. What I found is game-changing. Hidden in plain sight are survival items that cost next to nothing but could save your life when everything around you falls apart. I also went through FEMA reports, real disaster case studies, and advice from hardcore preppers, and let me tell you something. Most people are prepping all wrong. They're throwing away thousands on overpriced gadgets while ignoring these dirt-cheap, battle-tested tools that are proven to work. And here's the kicker. With food shortages, empty shelves, and prices going through the roof, these forgotten items won't stay cheap for long. Have you noticed prices climbing in your area? Tell me in the comments, because what you're seeing might be the first warning sign of what's coming. So stick with me, because in this video, I'm breaking down 21 survival items that most people overlook, items that could keep you fed, warm and safe when disaster strikes. Let's dive in. First up, the manual can opener, the tiny tool that could save dinner when the lights go out. Picture this. Power's been down for days, your fridge is useless, and the only food you have is sitting inside cans. Your fancy electric opener? Dead weight. That's when this little metal tool becomes priceless. And I'm not talking about the big clunky openers you've got at home. I mean the small rugged military-style ones, tools that were standard issue for soldiers in Korea, Vietnam, and beyond. They're called the P-38 and the P-51. The P-38 is so small it fits on a keychain, while the P-51 is a bit bigger but just as tough. Both are made of solid steel, built to last through anything. Toss a few in your bug-out bag and you'll barely notice the weight, but when you're hungry and desperate, you'll thank yourself. No batteries, no moving parts, no fancy technology. Just hook, crank, twist, and dinner is served. And as a bonus, they pop bottle caps too. That makes them the Swiss Army knife of opening things. Here's the best part, they cost almost nothing. At flea markets, you can usually find them for $1 or $2. Sellers think they're junk, but in reality, they're survival in your pocket. Now let's move to survival item number 2. Cast iron cookware, the indestructible kitchen essential. Picture this, a dusty old skillet sitting on a flea market table between broken radios and VHS tapes. Most people ignore it, but you won't anymore. Because that pan isn't just cookware, it's a survival weapon. Cast iron lasts for generations. It cooks over a campfire, a wood stove, even hot rocks if you have to. It holds heat, cooks evenly, and can handle anything from frying eggs to baking bread. And when modern non-stick pans break down, cast iron just keeps going. Even if you find one that's rusty or grimy, it's easy to bring back to life. Scrub it down, season it with oil, and it's as good as new, often better than what you'd buy brand new today. Vintage brands like Wagner or Griswold are especially prized, and in a crisis, they could even become valuable barter items. So the next time you see an old cast iron pan at a flea market, don't walk past it, pick it up. Because when everyone else is struggling to cook on flimsy gear, you'll have the one tool built to outlast the storm. In a long-term crisis, people won't just be fighting over food or medicine, they'll be looking for tools that can actually keep them alive. And here's the truth. A solid cast iron skillet can be worth more than cash. Everyone needs to eat, and a pan that can fry, bake, and boil over almost any heat source instantly becomes barter gold. So the next time you see one of those dusty black skillets at a flea market, don't hesitate. Flip it over, check the handle for cracks, and grab it. At $5 or $10, it's not just a deal, it's a survival investment. Now let's move on to item number 3, hand crank radios, your lifeline, when the grid goes dark. Picture this. The storm has knocked out power, your phone is dead, the internet is down, you're sitting in silence, not knowing if the danger has passed or if something worse is coming. That's when a hand crank radio becomes priceless. This little box isn't just a gadget, it's your connection to the outside world, and you can often find one tossed in a flea market bin for less than $10. The beauty of these radios is simple, they don't rely on batteries or wall outlets. Just crank the handle for a minute or two, and you've got power. Most pick up AM and FM stations, but the real jackpot is NOAA weather alerts. These channels cut through the silence with official updates, warnings and instructions when everything else has gone dark. Some even have USB ports that let you trickle charge a phone, enough for a quick text or a GPS check. And many come with built-in flashlights or emergency beacons, giving you two tools in one. When you find one at a flea market, give it a test. Make sure the crank feels solid, the gears aren't stripped, and there are no cracks in the casing. Even older models can still be lifesavers, if they're in working order. In the middle of a blackout, when the world feels cut off, that static-filled voice on the radio might be the most comforting sound you'll ever hear. Don't underestimate it. In your bug-out bag, a hand crank radio is pure survival gold. That brings us to item number 4, leather work gloves. The underrated armor that saves your skin. If you've ever chopped firewood, dragged a generator through the mud, or built a shelter from scratch, you already know bare hands don't last long. One slip, and you're looking at blisters, cuts, or infections, and in a survival scenario, even a small injury can turn deadly. That's why a tough pair of leather gloves is non-negotiable. But forget the flimsy dollar store versions. You want the heavy-duty kind. Look for thick oil-tanned leather that shrugs off rain and stays flexible even after getting wet. Reinforced palms, strong stitching, and a snug fit are what separate good gloves from trash. Some even have long cuffs to protect your forearms from thorns, sparks, or hot metal. At flea markets, you'll often find them tossed in with old tools, dusty but still ready for action. A little leather conditioner, and they're practically brand new. And here's something most people overlook: gloves are barter gold too. In a crisis, someone hauling wood or clearing debris will trade food, fuel, even ammo for a reliable pair. Because when your hands fail, everything else grinds to a halt. So if you spot a pair of rugged beat-up leather gloves at a flea market, don't walk away. Grab them. Your future self will thank you. Now item number 5, vintage axes and hatchets, the ultimate multi-tool. Let's be real. An axe isn't just a tool, it's a symbol. It says, I'm ready for whatever comes next. And the crazy part, some of the best axes you'll ever find aren't shiny and new. They're the old forgotten ones, leaning against a flea market table since the 1940s. Look for axes with full tang construction, where the steel runs through the handle for maximum strength. Legendary brands like Council Tool, Collins, and Plum are top-notch, but even old Boy Scout hatchets can be treasures if they're in good condition. Don't fear a little rust or a rough wooden handle. Wood handles can be sanded smooth and oiled with linseed oil, and they'll absorb shock better than modern plastic or fiberglass. As long as the blade isn't cracked and the head is solid, you've got a tool that can last a lifetime. And make no mistake, a good axe is one of the most versatile tools you'll ever own. You can chop firewood, split logs, build shelters, or even defend yourself if it comes to that. In a long-term crisis, an axe isn't just useful, it's survival written in steel. Here's the thing about an axe: in a long-term crisis, it's more than just a tool, it's a form of currency. People will trade food, fuel, or ammo for a solid, dependable cutting tool, and those who have one instantly hold power. The best part, you're not shelling out $80 or $100 for a shiny new one. At a flea market, you'll often score a vintage axe or hatchet for $15 or $20. That rusty-looking tool sitting in the corner. It's not junk, it's raw, untapped power waiting to be restored and unleashed. Now let's talk about number 6, heavy-duty metal flashlights, the kind of light that never quits. You've probably seen them before. Those old-school all-metal flashlights that feel like they could double as a club. They don't have strobe modes, they don't come with USB ports, and they won't blind a bear at 100 yards. But that's exactly why they're perfect. Simple, rugged, and built like tanks, these flashlights are designed to survive just about anything. Most of them run on regular D-cell batteries, the kind you can find in almost any store, gas station, or even scavenged from abandoned gear. No fancy lithium packs, no delicate charging cables. Pop in a couple of batteries, twist the cap, and you've got light. And because they use old-fashioned incandescent bulbs, replacements are as easy as screwing in a new one. No delicate microchips, no fragile wiring, just reliable, steady light when you need it most. Drop one off a ladder? No problem. Step on it, it'll laugh at you. Forget it in your bug-out bag for years? As long as you pack fresh batteries, it'll fire right up. Look for brands like Maglite, Eve Ready, or old military surplus models. Aluminum flashlights are lighter, steel ones are heavier, but both are nearly indestructible. Before buying, click the switch a few times to make sure it's smooth, and check the lens for cracks. And here's a bonus. Most people don't think about these flashlights double as self-defense tools. In the dark, with something moving in the shadows, you'll feel a lot safer holding a 2-pound metal flashlight than a smartphone. They may not shine as bright as modern LEDs, but when everything else fails, they'll still be glowing. At flea markets, you'll usually find them buried under piles of old electronics for just a couple of bucks. Don't walk past them, grab one. In a world drowning in disposable gadgets, a solid metal flashlight is the quiet hero you'll be glad you trusted. That brings us to number 7, canvas tarps and military wool blankets. Two humble survival essentials that often get ignored. You never really appreciate a good tarp until you're caught in a downpour, desperately trying to keep your gear dry with a garbage bag and a prayer. That's when a heavy-duty canvas tarp becomes a lifesaver. And flea markets? They're loaded with them. Usually folded in a dusty corner, half hidden under old tools, waiting for someone smart enough to notice. These aren't the flimsy blue tarps you pick up at a hardware store that rip after a week. These are thick, water-resistant canvas tarps, the kind truckers, farmers, and soldiers have relied on for decades. Strong seams, tough fabric, and metal grommets that let you tie them down tight. Treat them with waterproofing spray and they'll shrug off rain like nothing. Use one as a shelter, a ground cover, a windbreak, or even a makeshift roof. Fold it up, stash it in your car or bug-out bag, and you're ready for anything. And then there are military wool blankets. Issued to soldiers for generations, these blankets were built for harsh conditions. They're thick, they hold warmth even when wet, and they don't disintegrate like modern fleece. Some even come with brass snaps or loops so you can link multiple blankets together for extra coverage. Yes, they might smell a little musty when you first find them, but one good wash and they're ready for duty again. Here's the kicker. Both tarps and wool blankets usually sell for $5 to $20 at flea markets, while brand new ones can cost 5 times as much. In a survival situation, warmth and shelter are priceless. These aren't just cheap finds, they're insurance against cold nights and sudden storms. So the next time you spot a rugged tarp or a scratchy old army blanket at a flea market, don't pass it up. Grab it, stash it, and thank yourself later. Picture this, you're walking through a flea market when you spot a cardboard box with a scribbled sign, "Old canned goods, $1 each." Most shoppers laugh, wrinkle their noses and move on. But not you. You stop because you know the truth. Those dusty cans could be worth more than gold when disaster strikes. Here's why. Vintage canned goods, beans, soups, peaches, even meat from the 70s or 80s, can often still be safe if the can is intact. If there's no rust eating through, no bulging sides, and the seal is tight, the food inside is usually preserved. Now, I'm not telling you to open up a 40-year-old can of peas for dinner tonight, but in a long-term crisis, those cans become instant barter currency. Imagine rolling into a trade with a can of peaches from 1978, perfectly sealed and looking untouched. That's not just food. That's proof you were prepared. People will swap ammo, fuel, tools, even medicine for something they can eat and trust. In fact, holding one of those cans in your hand sends a message: you've got resources most people overlooked. And don't forget, older canned goods were made before many modern preservatives. In other words, they often contain nothing but real food. Look for solid brands like Libby's, Del Monte, or military surplus rations. Even if the label is faded or peeling, the value lies in the can itself. As long as it's sealed and strong, it's not junk, it's survival insurance. Sometimes the oldest supplies are the most reliable. That brings us to item number 9, manual grain mills, the machines that turn raw grains into survival gold. Picture this, the grocery stores are empty, no flour, no bread, but you've got a bucket of wheat or corn stored away. Now what? You can't chew raw wheat kernels and call it dinner. This is where a manual grain mill becomes a game changer. These old-school grinders run on nothing but muscle power. Pour in wheat, oats, corn or barley, turn the handle, and out comes fresh flour. Real wholesome flour you can use to bake bread, make pancakes, or cook cornbread. You control the grind, coarse, fine, or anywhere in between. And here's the secret, flea markets are full of them, often selling for a fraction of what you'd pay new.